In this video, we will go over the order of operations. Let's consider first a simple calculation. If I did 3 times 5 plus 2, before I press enter, you might expect that to evaluate this, we want to go from left to right. We do 3 times 5, which of course gives us 15. Then you add 2 to that, which gives you a final result of 17. Indeed, if I press enter, as you can see, we get 17. Let's try to flip this now and instead move the 2 to the front. So now I have 2 plus 3 times 5. At first, what might occur as the obvious thing to do is to go from left to right again. If I did that, I would first do 2 plus 3, which gives me 5, and then I would multiply that by 5, and I would expect an answer at 25. I press enter, and behold, I don't get 25. Instead, we end up getting 17 again. It looks like the same calculations were performed in the same order as the first example. This is because in algebra, what happens in the above is that mathematicians are going to follow what's called the order of operations. Instead of simply calculating left to right, instead we're going to always do certain calculations first. So here the 3 times 5 occurs first, no matter what order we write it in. The adding 2 happens second, no matter if it's written first, like it is here, or it's written afterwards, like it's written here. Okay, the order that we do these two calculations is specified by this order of operations. The order of operations is shown right here, so let's go over this. The P stands for parentheses. If we have anything inside of parentheses, we are always going to do that first. It doesn't matter what's inside of it. We have to handle that before we do anything outside the parentheses. Next are exponents. That's what the E stands for. This is when you raise something to a power. Next, we have multiplication and division. These are on the same line because they happen during the same step. Okay, multiplication doesn't necessarily happen before division. Division doesn't necessarily happen before multiplication. They have the same priority. Finally, this last thing here stands for addition and subtraction. An easy way to remember the order of operations is to simply remember the term Pemdas. So here are each of the letters, and they make up the word right here, Pemdas. So parentheses, exponent, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction. Let's do some samples. First sample here tells us to do 17 minus 5 squared, divided by, and then inside parentheses 2 plus 3. If we follow the order of operations, okay, there's a set of parentheses here. That begins the problem. We want to do that first. So 2 plus 3 is inside the parentheses. I add them together, I get 5. Notice everything else comes straight down. We don't do anything about them. Next, I'm going to look for exponents, and I have one right here. This is 5 raised to the second power. I need to perform that. The 17 comes down, the minus comes down. I'm going to do 5 squared, which gives me 25. That's the exponent step. Now we've got to figure out the next thing we have to do. It's multiply and divide step. There's a division symbol here, so I want to perform this next. The 17 and the subtraction, I'm going to hold off on that. 25 divided by 5 is 5. There's only one operation left. It's a subtraction, and I get a final answer of 12. Over here, we have a parentheses. So this is how we're going to start. nothing else changes except we do 3 plus 1 to give us 4 inside the parentheses. Next, we look to see if we have any exponents. We do. Here's another 5 squared. So we're going to do that. And that's all I'm going to do. Everything else I'm going to leave as is. Next, we have multiplication and division. There's several multiplications to perform here. We have to perform each. So first, you'll notice this right here. 2 next to a parentheses means multiplication. Whenever you have any number sitting next to a parentheses, it tells you to multiply the two numbers together. We also have a multiplication here. This dot symbol is multiplication. So we have to do both of those. 2 times 4 gives me 8. 2 times 4 gives me 8. All right, finally, we have addition and subtraction. And all I have left is addition and subtraction symbols. So I'm going to do all these in one step. I'm just going to go left to right. So 12 plus 8 gives me 20. If I add 25 to that, I'm going to get 45. And then if I subtract 8, I'm going to get 37, I believe. In the next samples, we're going to have to evaluate using order of operations again. But we're going to add another thing here where we also have to perform a substitution. So you can see here that I'm told that x equals 5 and y equals 3. So you'll see this statement here. There's some letters here. Those letters are stand-ins for values that we don't currently know or values that we want to put in. So this is kind of like a formula. We got to put numbers into the formula and then make the calculation. So wherever there's an x, we're going to put a 5. I'll just highlight it there. And wherever there's a y, we want to put a 3. Now we got to be careful here. When we substitute, we have to know what calculation we want to perform. So when you have a number next to a letter like this, this means multiply. So when I put the 5 in, I'm going to put a dot here so that I know that I'm multiplying the two numbers together. Okay, now I got to be careful with the substitution here. Make sure I do it right. Where the x is, or where it was, I'm going to put a 5. And where the y is, I'm going to put a 3. Notice again, I insert a multiplication symbol because if there's nothing next to these two, that's what it wants you to do. If there's two letters next to each other, it wants you to multiply them. There's the square symbol. And then xy is 5 times 3 again. All right, let's follow order of operations. Parentheses first. Here's a parentheses. Five times 3 gives me 15. Everything else remains the same. Next, I look for exponents. I do have an exponent right here. That's going to affect this 15. These things will not be messed with. We're only going to do the 15 squared. If you don't know what 15 squared is, it's 15 times 15. Okay, that gives me 225. Divided by 5 times 3. Next, we have multiplication and division. We're going to do both at the same time, so I'm going to highlight everything that matters here. We have 5 times 5 here. I got to do that multiplication. I have a division here, and I have a multiplication here. So I'm going to do all that. 5 times 5 is 25. All right, right here, this is important. Even though there's an M here before the D, right? You can see the M before the D. They happen at the same time. So the correct thing to do here is 225 divided by 5. Okay, we're going left to right. I have to do that first. Gives me 45. And then I'm going to take that 45 and multiply it by 3. Okay, so I just went left to right. 225 divided by 5 times 3. Gives me 135. And now I can add these two together for my final answer. Let's do this sample next. So wherever there's an A, I'm going to put 2. Wherever there's a B, I'm going to put 7. So if I substitute, it should be 3 times 7 minus 2 squared. There is no parentheses, so I'm just going to skip that. I'm going to go right to exponents. I do have an exponent here, my 2 squared. Two squared just gives us 4, and that's what I get. Next step is multiplication and division. I do have a multiplication right here, 3 times 7. I will perform that and get 21. Lastly, I have 21 minus 4. I'll perform that, and it gives me 17.